This is the business model roundtable. So there's a lot of theoretical talk and a lot of hype. I'm not here to throw a wet towel on heating, but these guys are doing a lot of this stuff now in real time. So we'll get into it with these guys. I'm gonna have you guys introduce yourselves, and I'd like you to just like name the company you're associated with and the rate of the power the consumers you serve have, at the place that you're operating. So, Cade, we can start with you.
Hey, my name's Cade Peterson. I'm got a background in aircraft maintenance. I did about 20 years in the Air Force. And then when I retired, I went to business school at USC, moved back home to Idaho, figured out that Bitcoin mining was a great way to heat my house. And I understand systems and systems engineering. And I'm like, well, why don't I just do this? And then this, and then this. And so we got about 15 sites now that we service, mostly owned by the customer, but I help them operate their equipment and set it up. And our power rate ranges from 4.2 cents a kilowatt hour for three-phase, 5.2 cents for commercial, and 5.8 for residential. And so electric and propane are the primary means of heat in the town. So people are starting to get it.
All right, Troy?
Yeah, Troy Cross. I'm actually a philosophy professor. Just one of these is not like the other. I told my wife, I'm the only bullshitter on the program. So people actually do stuff. But I'm a longtime Bitcoiner pleb, and was mining back in 2011 and, heating inadvertently in my basement with graphics cards. But I had kind of a vision of this happening. Well, Satoshi had a vision of this happening. But I just can't say what it means to see people here fucking doing it. It's awesome. The feeling of being early to Bitcoin, it's like magical, spine-tingly feeling, like the world's about to change and people don't see it yet, but you can see that it's inevitable, and the barriers are breakable. They're social. They're bullshit stuff. People don't understand Bitcoin. We need to orange pill them. Yeah. Okay, that's doable. People are afraid of machines that don't look like the machines they're familiar with. Yeah, we can solve that. There are a lot of problems. But they're all solvable. But the first principles is smart heat or dumb heat. Which one's going to win? Mining without selling your heat, or mining with your heat, selling your heat. Which one's going to win? And so the first principles is this is where things are headed. And sorry to rant. I saw that, I saw that a while ago and I blabbed about it on Twitter. I'm a Twitter, influencer. It's my other job. And then I aligned myself with companies that are actually doing it, like dung beetle of energy style companies. Mostly because a lot of people reached out to me early on when I went public as a Bitcoiner a few years ago. And one of those companies is Anadro, and I'm representing them, I guess, here today. And in terms of the power prices, they're only in California. They're only in California for a reason, and that's because power is really expensive there. The centralized energy system of California is fucked, and it will not get unfucked anytime soon. And that's the basis of their business model. They start in San Diego. Power price is 46 cents a kilowatt hour, and rising. So yeah, that makes certain things possible.
Great. Nicholas?
Hi, my name is Nicolas Drouin. I'm from Constellation Heating, the founder. My background is very similar to Kay's. I have an engineering background. In the recent years, worked in finance, so kind of the intersection of where Bitcoin sits at the middle, so finance, technology. The products we're building are pool heaters, mostly. Well, actually, I branded them as pool heaters, but ended up my customers, most of them are not using the heaters for pool heating. They're heating their house, which is great, so that's another application. The typical customers is within 4 to 15 kilowatts, so everything is residential. And I'm selling systems all over the US and Canada, so we have all the extremes. So northeastern United States, you have power from maybe 15 cents a kilowatt hour. And if you move to Quebec, where I live, it's the US equivalent of 6 cents per kilowatt hour. So business cases are very different depending on where you sell the product. So sometimes heat is the product, sometimes the Bitcoin is the product. So you gotta adjust the sales pitch based on that.
Great. So I want to start next and get into kind of like the more nitty gritty of what you guys do. So Kate, I want to start with you. You kind of have like what I consider to be the most straightforward business model. It's like, we have these Globo miners now. They started with the obvious case. It was like find cheap power, blast Bitcoin. Like crank out heat and on cheap power. It doesn't matter if we're wasting heat. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters. We got such cheap energy. We can just go. So like, what is it like, and what are your customers? Who are your customers that you're serving? And what kind of systems are you installing?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's really important to realize is that we have a glut of ASIC miners basically out there that can't be used either because of power prices mainly, right? They all have to be hosted in infrastructure. And that's really where we come in with heating homes and businesses. We're creating infrastructure to place these things. And so you have a universal logistics model of form, fit, and function with a specific size, right? And that's what Southwest Airlines did, and that's how they captured their market, is they only flew the 737. So you have a standardization of logistics model. When you have a bunch of different types of ASICs, for one, you can kind of get around that. But if they all were different sizes, you would have to eventually come to an agreement on what you're going to use, right? And so being that AMP miners are pretty popular, that's what we've kind of gone with. I like running brains. I haven't burned a computer up yet with it. I have with others. I'll just say that. But we've got about 15 sites now. You might have seen our car wash on X. So we have a car wash running. It's open all year now. The owners were paying $25 a month previously to run propane and barely keeping it open, scraping by on their profit. Now they make net after paying the electrical bill an additional $20, $15 a day. They're open, which means they get more business. People come there. I rinsed all the ice off my truck the other day. It's awesome, right? We've got a concrete batch plant. We heat the 3,000-gallon water tank with 2 ASIC miners. So and the ironic thing, I ordered a bunch of concrete last spring and poured, it was Bitcoin heated water, went in the concrete. And you might have seen my snow melt system on X, but we poured Bitcoin heated concrete to make a Bitcoin heated sidewalk. So we've got a infrastructure going in the town now. We have about 1,000 people in town. We're about 2.5 hours from Walmart, and it's cold. And people are starting to get it. People are starting to talk. And our most ironic project, I think, is there's a bank in town. It used to be called the Custer County Bank. Then it became First Security Bank, and this is from the 70s until now. Then it became U.S. Bank, and then Wells Fargo bought it. Wells Fargo just abandoned our town. Now we mine Bitcoin in it. Yep.
Nice. Bitcoin driving out the fiat titans one bank at a time.
Yeah, it's pretty ironic.
So what are you doing as far as structure, as far as, do the clients of your places, are they keeping the Bitcoin? Are you keeping the Bitcoin? Is there a split?
Yeah, so I've done it a couple ways. I've done kind of a financing deal with some of my customers where, let's say my investment, my invoice on it is $4,000 to put in an immersion system with a split disbursement so they can dump it outside. And that includes the ASIC, just a simple S19 or a J. And what I'll say is, okay, look, this costs $4,000 in fiat today, which is equivalent to this much Bitcoin today. As soon as your hash rate split pays me back that much Bitcoin, we'll consider it even. So essentially, it's like a 0% financing deal that they pay through their electric bill, which is tax deductible on their end if they claim they're mining a crypto. And I use that term because that's what the IRS says. I know the difference. I think we all know.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of the model I have on financing equipment for people. But if they just buy it outright and pay me fiat, most of the people just want me to manage it for them. And so I'll just ask for 10% of the split on the hash rate. So I use my handy brain software to do that. And actually on the pool is where I do it. But that's one thing I really like about Brains as well, is because the user interface, it's really simple for the customer to understand. And we just hook them up with a a way to monitor their own pool account. So everything's transparent and they can see how much they're getting. Or say, for example, I had a tenant, okay, in the rental model. I've got a couple properties I heat with Bitcoin, and that's a great model. Like you sell the heat to the tenant essentially by offering them a flat rate with all utilities included, because heat's going to drive the biggest expense on your utilities, right? So if it's all included, you want to keep the data going, you just want to pay for everything, you charge more rent, you're essentially selling them the heat, you're getting the Bitcoin, you give them a little percent of it so they're interested in it, and when it turns off, they go and flip the switch or they report to you and they watch it and keep it running. And it's a win-win for everybody. And it works really great. We got the car wash has an apartment on the other end, speaking of split units. It's got a shop in the middle. It's all heated with Bitcoin. It's not just the car wash. The whole building is. We've got 14 miners running in that building. And that apartment can't get rid of the heat. It's ridiculously hot in it. But it's his mother-in-law, so he's like, it's cool. She can open the window. Right? So, yeah. So, I mean, that's one example. But partnering with general contractors is really key, in my opinion. Because I'm not going to go put their electric in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I don't know how, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not a licensed electrician. It's not worth my time and money. And same way with plumbing. And I'll tell their electrician or whatever how to do it. I'll help them set it up. But when it comes down to the actual infrastructure construction, the general contractors are great partners to work with.
Cool. Troy, I want to move on to you. As you guys heard, these guys they're not actually reusing heat yet, but they are somehow mining Bitcoin in what I thought was impossible, California. I thought for sure, like no one will ever, they won't even use bitaxes in California. It's too expensive. But yet you guys are doing it. So if you want to just lay out what's going on down there.
Yeah, sure. Well, Anadro is actually a solar company. They are a residential solar company. So they're building solar systems, including batteries and inverters, on rooftops in California. Right now, that's a very rough business in California. Solar industry has collapsed because they have reformed net metering and are now paying very little for the customer's power back to the grid. And that's because California has enough solar, basically. They don't need any more residential solar feeding into the grid. So that's kind of a good thing, actually. The grid isn't paying for power that it doesn't need anymore. But it leaves solar installers in the lurch. So that was kind of a desperate market. And the guys who started this, Dhruv Mehta and Chase Beach, were like, hey, what we could do is over-provision rooftops with solar, because we think that homes are electrifying. People are getting heat pumps. They're buying induction stoves. They're buying EVs and charging them at home. Right? We're consuming more energy over time, and the price of energy is ridiculous, and it's only rising because it's a inefficient system. The transmission is the bulk of the cost of electricity, and while the cost of generation keeps dropping with technical advances in solar and wind, the cost of transmission distribution keeps rising because of bureaucracy, red tape, storms, disasters. So we ultimately could build a business selling power to homeowners from their own rooftops. We can do it cheaper than the grid can do it. We can generate that power a lot cheaper than the grid can do it. But if we have an off-taker locally in Bitcoin mining, we can over-provision those rooftops and do it at a scale that makes sense. And we can sell people a lot of power in the future for when they use it. And we can bridge to that time using Bitcoin mining. So the business model is actually the first product they offered. They sort of, like Colin was saying, downplayed the Bitcoin aspect because people don't want to hear about that. It was just like, we'll over-provision your rooftop and we'll do computing locally with some of that energy. And what's in it for you is that we will sell you power at a 25% discount from the utility rate. So instead of 46 cents, you get 25% off that for all the power that you buy from your own roof. And you'll get 2 Tesla power walls installed. So you'll have backup when this shitty grid fails on you, right? So the total sale to the customer has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's like, because of this thing, we're able to give you a discount on utility rates. It turns out that's kind of a hard sell. Sales is everything in solar. I didn't realize this, but residential solar is almost all about marketing. A lot of these companies spend more on marketing than they spend on panels. Panels are getting cheap, but you got to find customers. And in fact, that's what most of your subsidy to solar is going to pay. It pays guys in pickup trucks going around to homes and selling solar who are making like $1 million a year. That's what your federal tax dollars are paying for, which is why Anadro is actually opposed to the solar subsidy that exists and would like to see it reformed or reduced. We don't think it's actually helpful. But then, okay, that's one group of customers, just like people who are already buying solar, already interested in solar, like, hey, can we over-provision your roof and give you a discount to solar residential utility rates? The other market, which we discovered, is Bitcoiners who would like to mine Bitcoin. And they don't have an aversion to Bitcoin mining, they have an attraction to it. And they have a home already, and they don't want to deal with the mining in their house. And they would like a solar system because they'd like to be sovereign in terms of not only their money, but their energy as well, and decentralize the hash rate. Right? So the product we're offering to Bitcoiners is you pay a utility rate for your electricity from your own roof, but we're going to mine Bitcoin on your property, and you get 80% of that. So on the one hand, to one market, we're taking the Bitcoin risk ourselves and the reward and giving them a discount to utility rate. That's the normie market. And then to the other market, the Bitcoin market, we're giving them the exposure to the Bitcoin risk because they want it, right? And I heard this even on the other panels. If you're selling to YMCA, like maybe they don't want to be the biggest Bitcoin miner, and maybe there's a way that you can find financing that wants exposure to hash rate and to Bitcoin to take that risk away for YMCA. So they just buy heat, they just buy heat stuff with a contract with at maybe a discounted or favorable rate. And so you don't have to convince them to become Bitcoiners, right? That's like our first model at Anadro. You're selling to normies, you take the risk and find capital that's willing to take the risk and the reward. Selling to Bitcoiners, give them the risk and let them participate in mining. And so that's kind of the kind of big picture Anadro. And bonus is that incredible marketing cost when you're marketing to Bitcoiners who are, insane people who they're looking for products. I posted about this Anadro deal on Twitter. We had 500,000 views in 24 hours, and we had a kind of clunky. Sorry if any of you went through it. Very clunky kind of form to fill out. It was like multiple layers. If you have a home in California and you're interested in this, we got like 250 people who were interested and uploaded copies of their power bill, gave us estimates of their roof size. So that sort of, in-depth marketing was like free to the Bitcoiners. It was just me posting a thread about the product on Twitter. So I was like, wow, actually, business model here is Bitcoiners are hungry, as you all know, to mine and participate, just like I was in 2011. You want to be part of this thing. You can think of solar as having a marketing problem and Bitcoin as solving the marketing problem for solar. The miners are there, sure, they're giving sats to the homeowners, but their real job is just alerting them to the possibility of putting solar on their roof and buying solar from from their own roof, right? So yeah,
I tried to do what you're doing, didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I'm not good like you guys. I had a house in California, and I tried to capture that excess energy that I was, but the controls just weren't there at the time, and I had a tenant. It was hard to get them to do it correctly, but no, I've got more land up there.
I think a lot of pieces have to be in place. The power has to be really expensive. Yeah, the comparison, the A/B comparisons, like we were on the last panels, right? One comparison is between mining with solar versus solar without mining. Another comparison is mining in some way without solar and then mining with solar, right? Or it's like heating without mining or mining without heat. Those are both the comparisons. You got to win on one of those in order to come out ahead. And the situation in California has gotten so bad, that's why we're able to win.
So I'm interested if you can win on both. I mean, do you guys foresee a potential for being able to reuse some of the heat in California in addition to what you're doing now? And just like add to this question, what uptime are you guys getting on these miners? Like, so if you have excess solar, I mean, it seems to me like solar only produces 12 hours a day max. And what are the possible uptime you could even be getting on these if you have to then wait for it to be, beyond the saturation point of the like homeowner's bill? Is that how this works?
Yeah, well, this is where the over provisioning comes in and the batteries. So actually getting pretty decent uptimes. I say decent in the new era. In the old era, it would have been uneconomical, right? Mm-hmm. First of all, they're not using new ASICs. That's key to this whole enterprise. Why wasn't this happening years ago? I mean, heating with hash rate, because heating is intermittent and you needed your machines to be on all the time just to pay back CapEx. And there was the same reason that mining couldn't happen on solar. And one of those conditions that's changed is as the ASIC market has become commoditized, as the hash rate has kind of evened out, that chart that Rob showed, that plummet, he was bemoaning it, from Riot's bemoaning that chart. I'm loving that chart. That means that depreciation is going to be minimal on the machines because that CapEx all rushes into those machines when there's a boom. And then you can't afford to heat with mining. You need your miner on all the time. You can't afford to run it on solar. But yeah, we're over provisioning the rooftops, double the amount of power that the house is using. And we're putting in battery banks of various sizes. So we're running for more than just the solar hours. Whenever the homeowner wants power, obviously it's better to sell to them. They're going to pay us, depending on the deal, either utility rate, 46 cents a kilowatt hour, why would we mine? Or 25% off that. Again, why would we mine? Right? So this is pushing the limits of intermittency in a way that would, there was a Brains article a few years ago, like you cannot mine intermittently and make money, and it was right. But if you buy a used machine, you can make it work.
Yeah. I mean, it's happening. I've made it work the last 2 winters. I've even bought new miners, new to me miners. I mean, I don't know, people probably do heat with new miners. I certainly don't. But yeah, it is economical. I mean, and I'm not in the greatest power, the cheapest power on earth either, but it's pretty good. And it is the cheapest way for me to heat my house.
And just one last, heat is HVAC is on the roadmap. Okay. The reason that Anadro hasn't been able to implement it yet, it is really relevant to this conference right here, Summit. Already it's been difficult to find solar installers and teach them about this modular system and get them to install it. Like that's the key. The solar installers already have these networks. They already have sales networks, right? All you have to do is sell them like a package. It's like, hey, you can offer this as an upgrade on a solar system. And we will help educate you and we'll manage that system for you. But in order to integrate HVAC, we need another set of professionals. We need another set of tradesmen, right? And every installation is different. We want it to be as standardized and modular as possible in order for it to scale quickly. Some of why we've moved from these one-off custom installations on like the walls of people's garages to using the black boxes from Upstream Data, because like you just say that box, we can just put machines in and plop it down. Right? If you like, all the homeowner has to do is just give us a spot for that box. That makes it very, very easy. And when we can figure out the integration with the trades or the tools that you all are developing, it's going to be awesome. But we're not quite there yet. And San Diego, not a big HVAC consumer either.
Yeah, not a big heating load down there. There are some pools, I guess, but. Yeah, Nicholas, I want to move on to you. I just want you to give us a rundown of what Constellation is, who you guys are serving now, and then kind of like what the vision is going forward and where you guys are, what you're going to be doing going forward with Constellation.
Yeah, so all of our customers right now are residential. So what I target is a market where the cost of power is very low, so completely opposite. if I just to follow up on what you said with the contractor, so the business model is we're trying to make an abstraction. So the customer is not really a hardcore Bitcoiner. Of course, he knows Bitcoin. So typically what would happen is, okay, I want to install this into my house. I know what Bitcoin is. I don't know what mining is necessarily. And obviously, the contractor, the tradesman, they don't know how to install it. So how do we go from there? So we built a software that uses Luxor APIs that makes it very easy for the customer. So you just control everything with a nice, clean interface. You don't have to care about like pool setup. So very easy, very convenient. We take a dev fee from that software. And the idea to get the tradesman on board is we want to share that dev fee with them. So they have an incentive to install the machines, maintain them, make sure the hash rate is always optimal, and they can be there to service the machine, because I cannot be everywhere at the same time. And usually the contractor, when you're mentioning, oh, do you mind going and servicing a Bitcoin heater? They don't want to touch it. But now if they have like a recurring revenue from that machine they install, well, this is the incentive we're trying to get them to, actually use the contractors as sales reps out there in the field. And those machines are not cheap. So you're looking with older miners like S19. So on the opposite, I only sell with S21s. So those machines can be like $15,000, $16,000, $20,000. And having someone locally that can service, maintain that, this is what the customer wants, because he doesn't want to play or service the miners. So we take a dev fee, and so the point of that machine was to, how can we extract as much value as we can from that? So obviously the Bitcoin reward is one way to extract value from Bitcoin mining. Heat reuse. Okay, now you were thinking about using a heat pump or using a gas burner to heat your pool or to heat your house. Well, now you don't have to consider that expense. And the third thing that we're working on is, this is where it gets interesting. So the revenue model of the big, public companies, Marathon, so they have purchasing power agreement, PPAs that they negotiate with the grid. So when the grid needs power, they turn off, they get paid for that. So that's one way to get revenue from their operation. And the other way to get revenue is obviously the Bitcoin, the Bitcoin they mine. So when you're looking at a residential application, how do you negotiate a PPA? You cannot do that. And the price they're giving you, like the credits, when you're net metering, it's not really a good incentive. So the idea is, well, that's why the company is called Constellation Heating. So eventually, when you have so many heaters located on the same utility territory, well, then you can pool all those heaters together, and then you can have like more leverage to negotiate kind of a PPA the same way the big public miners are doing. So the revenue from the grid, we collect that. So we collect that and we pass that to the customer. So that's another way to make mining more efficient and more affordable for our customers.
Do you think that also presents a security risk to the grid? So
on the opposite, I think that balances the grid.
Well, right. But I'm just saying you'd have to have some type of really secure control, because if for some reason a malicious actor gained control of that, they could mess with the grid. You see what I mean?
Like, what if you're
Yeah.
unable to respond in time? I have a similar question.
Or say, like, for example, you control 15% of the grid power consumption, and then you're supposed to turn it down. You do, and then the peak comes up, and then you turn it up again. Not you, but like somebody who's taking control of your interface, right? Like, it'd need to be like some type of measured control, like where people have little badges, they go check into a place or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that want to get. I mean, it's an interesting idea, the like malicious attack thing, but I think maybe it's a little outside the scope of what I want to get into here. But I think more interestingly, so if you have these Constellation heaters, how are you going to be able to respond to the grid's demands if you're using only for heat, or are you anticipating putting dry coolers outside to be able to respond when you don't need a heating load? Like, let's say it's summertime and the grid is, and you can mine profitably.
Yep.
So are you going to do that, or is it just heating, or?
So the machine, how they are built is we want to maximize heat reuse all the time. So, well, I mean, I wouldn't say like a customer, if he wants to only mine and waste the heat, well, go ahead. I mean, you're paying the electricity.
So if they could do that profitably, would you? I guess. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the idea is well, you can opt in or opt out. So remotely, what we do is we kind of control the machine. So if you opt in, you allow us to, get control of the machine for, that many hours of the day. So when the when the grid needs power, they kind of send a signal to the market. So we respond to that, and all those who opted in, then they get turned off or modulated.
So what happens in a winter storm, for instance, where power needs spike? Your customers, if they suppose they have opted in?
Well, I mean,
how do they stay
It's
warm?
the cost of doing business, man.
Well,
just put on an extra sweater.
Well, good question. I mean, if there's no power, how are you going to heat your house even with a heat pump? So you need to have a backup there. Yeah.
No, and besides that, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I do. We have the APIs now where you don't have to turn it off. You could turn it down 500 watts.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can anticipate that. You can pre-warm or. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's totally feasible.
I mean, I think also, I don't know how these power purchasing agreements work in depth, but you may not have to shut off altogether. You may just have to pay a higher rate, right? Is that maybe what we're looking at too? Like, could we be looking at a more dynamic version of time of day power in a constellation setup?
We don't have that yet, but the idea is to, like, every utility has their, rates, and depending what
maybe
time
you
of
would
the
negotiate
day,
and say
you can, automatically put that rate into the controller of that machine, and if it's not economical, you turn down. If it is, you turn up, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love that this is possible. I know there's a FERC rule. Maybe somebody here would remember the name of the rule. There's a FERC rule that requires that aggregation in the U.S. You're in Canada, right?
Yeah.
But in the U.S., the FERC rule requires that aggregators be able to aggregate small distributed energy resources, either users or producers, to participate in demand response programs when aggregated. And there's somebody, as a Bitcoiner, who's doing this in Texas, David Energy. But I think about it like the advantages of scale and the disadvantages of scale. Heating is going to be one of those major disadvantages of scale because heat needs don't scale, right? And there are obvious advantages, efficiencies of scale, and that's why we have mega miners. And we're in a battle between them. And right now, one of the advantages of scale is the ability to get this alternative stream of revenue through power system, through grids or utilities. Every major miner participates in those things, and some cases that's more than they're mining. Riot had a month, July a year and a half ago, where they made more money from demand response participation than from mining Bitcoin. And it's like, another blow to the home miner. But if we can aggregate and participate in the very same programs, then that advantage disappears. I'm just a fan. I'm awesome.
I'm a fanboy too. I really think I'm so excited to get you here, Nicholas, because I really do think this is the holy grail of competing with big miners. Like, if you can take their one advantage away and compete with them, at a distributed, level, I think it puts home heating and even just home mining, even if you're not heating all the time, maybe you're just demand responding and dumping the heat outside in dry coolers, but at least it distributes this stuff to where it's not just these giant global mines. It's, it is in thousands of homes all across the country.
And it's pretty hard to operate and to balance a grid in real time. It's really in real time. So a big miner, like 10 megawatts, he's physically located somewhere on the grid. So that's tough. Maybe he shuts down his operation, but the whole grid around has to manage. So when you have multiple homes evenly distributed on the territory of the grid, that's way more easier for the grid to balance that. So I'm not at that level yet, but if the utility has to choose, they will prefer that way much than the big. So one customer that handles like 20, 50, 100 machines, or one customer at one location that can modulate, they will prefer like the distributed power.
So I kind of want to start wrapping up a little bit here. Do you guys have, in your perfect world, like we're here trying to solve problems, we're trying to fix things, what is one thing like in your line in these businesses that you would like to see improved, like an improvement that would make a material difference in what you guys are doing? We'll start with you, Cade, if you got one.
So like on an industrial like equipment?
No, yeah,
improvement?
anywhere. It could be equipment. It could be connection to the grid. I mean, it could be software. It could be hardware. It could be I mean, what are you finding lacking in what you're doing now? Or is everything working good? I mean,
I think everything's working pretty good. One hard thing to do is to monitor all locations at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I know Brains Manager is there, but it does require you to put something on that customer's network, right? So you can get into their network, and that's kind of invasive, right? It'd be nice to have something that isolates and you can only see the miner, and there's like that provide the privacy. Mm-hmm. Yep. And going into what Nick was saying about the different controls, I think it would be great to get something like that going. I've thought about the same thing too. But the problem, like I want to reiterate, is, and security is kind of a thing for me too. I have an experience with cybersecurity a little bit and systems security when I was in the military. And you have to, there's this level of responsibility you would have in implementing something that responds to a utility. And I think that's kind of where we're going down the same road. How do you control it in a manner that keeps the grid safe?
Yeah.
It's not just me in my basement drinking beer. Oh, turn it down.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, we can't be relying on you in your basement, kid. I'll tell you that.
And then I could hire a couple high school lackeys to do it, right? and they're like, yeah, turn it up, bro.
All right.
No, cool. but yeah, that's my opinion. I think we have a ways to go on that interface. I think we're we're getting close. We're really close, I think.
Cool. And Adro, what could Anadro use over there, Troy? A water heater, a plug-and-play Bitcoin water heater?
That would be amazing. An easy way to integrate heat would be incredible. I think form factor, I mean, what someone was saying in the last panel about these machines being made as a whole, and we have to disassemble them and rebuild. This is a massive inefficiency. Everything gets super cheap when we remove that inefficiency. And that's one of those barriers that people will cite about why this thing isn't happening already. And it is a real barrier, and I don't know how to solve it. But come on, like the economic incentive is there to solve it. We need to build purpose-built machines. If we're going to be mining in people's homes, yeah, these miners are loud. We have to do a lot just to handle the sound. And of course we rebuild them and we change the airflow and we can reduce the sound. But why can't we just buy it like that to begin with? Why can't we buy a quiet machine?
Yeah.
How about that? A quiet machine.
Well, you need to talk to some guys here. I'll point you in the right direction. Nicholas.
Yeah, form factor.
Form factor.
Yeah,
okay.
it's definitely something big for us. I mean, you put 3 miners in a heater, so you have 3 control boards, many hash board, a bunch of metal like the enclosure. I don't need that. So yeah, you need to take all that apart, build them back together. So form factor, there's 2 or 3 ASIC manufacturers. For me, that's a risk.
We had this problem. If you go outside and look at the tank that's heating those hash tubs out back, when Compass showed up, thank you Compass for bringing those miners to heat that. I noticed immediately we asked for 3 S19s. They brought us 3 S19s. I looked at them and said, those don't look like S19s. And someone informed me that there are 2 different sizes of S19s, and these ones are 3/4 of an inch longer, and they barely fit in the tank. So, I mean, even within one model of miner, there are different sizes. So, yeah. It is frustrating.
So trying to vertically integrate, that would be something very nice. But, I mean, the previous panel was mentioning about, like, how much does it cost to just develop your own chip?
Yeah.
Forget that. It's like millions and millions of dollars.
Well, yeah.
But now Block is coming. So
they're here.
They're providing new solutions. So the competition will have to adapt to this. So this was, when I heard that first, it was a great news. So one less risk to the business model.
Okay, cool. I got a question from the crowd. We'll move on to that for Troy. Troy, someone's asking, is there an addressable market that you see for the on-grid tied solar in California? And what about direct DC solar generation or direct DC mining?
Direct DC is where it's at, first of all. And yeah, I won't speak to any of that because I don't know what's proprietary and what isn't with Anadrome. Let's just say it's on the... We've been all over that from the very first day. I was amazed to learn basically how much solar energy is wasted in clipped power. It all has to be converted from DC to AC to be fed into the grid or to be used in appliances.
Or to be converted back to DC for mining.
Yes, everything gets converted back to DC to mine, exactly. So, like, why do that? Especially if you're going to have batteries on. If you're going to have batteries there anyway, why not just charge the batteries in DC and then pull it off in DC? But we undersize inverters systematically throughout the whole energy system for solar. Why? Because you get your peak power on solar and only briefly at a middle time of certain time of day, right? And usually that's when the grid needs it least. So why would you build an inverter, which is very expensive, to handle that peak production? You wouldn't. It's stupid. Nobody does. They might make it to handle 65% of that level of energy. What happens when you're producing more than that? It's clipped. It's just wasted. So I'm like, wait a minute. Are you telling me all around the world, during those peak periods as the sun's going around, all of these solar farms everywhere in the world, they're just clipping power? Yes.
What percentage of clipping are you talking about at the top here?
How
much are they? It's like 20% or something? That you're
It's
missing?
more than that, but it's only for a brief time, right?
Yeah.
So it can be 35%, but it's only for a brief time.
Wow.
And it's different in different circumstances. Sizing out your inverter is one of the optimizations. And it depends on the need at that time. So it depends on the state of the grid. Anyway, it's not just the physics of light, but also the grid's needs at that time. And they're sized this way for a reason, but then you just realize, like, wow, what a colossal waste of energy. And then, well, can we capture that energy? Well, our intermittency is going to be extreme running on DC clipped power, right? So not exactly, but we can capture it as part of another system. We can capture it with a battery, et cetera. Oh, I won't go down that road, but sorry.
We got one more.
There's a lot of wasted energy out there to be harvested. Once you see it, you're like, this can't last.
We got one more question for Cade, and then we're going to wrap. Cade, someone's asking, what kind of hurdles, like regulatory hurdles, have you been facing or do you anticipate? And also, how do you mitigate like liability risks?
That's a good question. Liability risks, I like to be very clear with my customers. I should probably have more codified contracts, though, that this is your equipment and you're operating it. And you get, like with the air-cooled miners, for example, I give them a basic idea how they need to set it up. As far as insurance goes, it's their equipment. And it's not my equipment. I don't need to insure my equipment because it's their equipment. And I'm transparent with them. I think one of the risks, too, that a lot of people don't think about is not just fire or maybe leakage from an immersion coolant fluid on their floor or something like that. But there's a risk, and I've found this with some high net worth individual I'm working with. He just can't get around to figure out his Bitcoin wallet.
This is the risk of lost
It's just
funds.
not his thing. And I'm like, bro, I'm not going to make it up for you. Here's a seed phrase. It's okay. You can use it. No, I'm not going to do that. So I have a risk in a sense where he's built up this money on the pool and he's just not getting his wallet done. And so I'm concerned at some point that he's not going to get his Bitcoin. And then he's going to say, hey, why didn't you get me my Bitcoin? Right? Just because he's being stupid. So I think that's a risk.
Okay.
It's not just equipment damage. It's not just, things burning up or whatnot. It's also the behavior of your customers.
Sure.
And so I'm pretty selective about who I've partnered with. I've had some that just say they're interested, and then you can tell that they're not following through with what they need to do. And so that's a risk.
Yeah, and we'll have a panel tomorrow, I believe, on the, or maybe it's later today, on the regulatory end of this, and we'll get into some more of this as far as like regulatory risks and that kind of thing. But
Just
we're going
to say a brief word here. Anadro has the opposite approach. We own the machines, and they're sitting there in black boxes or whatever. We're worried about theft risk, like the catalytic converters of the energy system, right?
You need like
If
those fake lights on it that
if
make.
you're smart enough to rip copper out of like wiring systems, then you're going to figure out that these little boxes have money printers in them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm worried about that in general for a lot of different distributed hash products.
All right, well, let's give these guys a round of applause. Thanks, everybody.